YouTube, we've got a box. We're gonna open it right now. If you guys haven't seen this video already, it is an unbox of what we believe is going to be a great trainer, we hope. Oh yeah, it's Easy Trainer. This comes in a ready to fly from FMS. Simple, stable, rigid. All right, so we're gonna see if this thing does what they say it's gonna do. Just full disclosure, if you guys are looking at this, this comes with a reflex, which is a stabilizer. It's 1280 millimeters. So it's pretty decent size, and they offer a smaller one. So just make sure if you're looking to buy this by following our links, which does help to support us financially, then you will need to make sure you pick the size you want, okay? So that being said, we're gonna get right into it. Here on Brian Phillips RC, we unbox, build, and radio set up these things, but since this is a ready to fly, we won't hopefully need to do much on the radio setup. 50.4 inches there, I already said 1280. Looks like it's 630 grams. Motor size is 2212, which is 2650 kV, so 2650 revolutions per volt. And this is gonna fly on 7.4 volts, also known as a 2S. Okay, so it's actually about 8 something fully charged. It'd be about 8.4 volts. And the motor size is the millimeters by millimeters prop. Prop size is 5 by 5.2 blade. And it's a 2-blade prop. It's a pusher prop. And we'll go over all that kind of as we break this thing out. But if you're looking for something that's easy to get you up in the air, this might be perfect for you. And if it's not, we'll help you find out by watching through these videos with us here on Brian Phillips RC. Again, if you're new to Brian Phillips RC and you're a brand new pilot or just trying to become a brand new pilot, you're in the perfect spot. We have literally thousands of videos that will keep you busy. Even if you think there's something you're waiting for, there's something waiting for you. So just look through our playlists and you can find exactly what it is you're looking for, probably without waiting at all. But also, if you're a returning subscriber, you already know this, there is always new stuff around the bend, trying to bring you the latest and greatest in RC action. Okay, so first thing I notice is the charger. I want to get the charger going so we can get the battery charged. So we can go out and fly here in a little bit, okay? So we've got a battery here. Let's take a look at that together, camera crew. What is this? This is a Predator 1300 milliamp high performance lithium polymer battery, 7.4 volts, 20C. And nowhere in the nomenclature on this battery does it say 2S, and that's for some confusing reason the Chinese have decided not to include that in this one. But as you can see, there are 3 wires here. One is the most positive and one is the most negative. These 2 are 1 cell. These 2 are 1 cell. And then this big one is the discharge lead, with these being parallel or common and these being parallel, okay? So that middle one doesn't actually attach to anything on the output because we just take the top and bottom of these cells in series, S for series. Not to be confused with C for the number of cells. There is no cell count with C's in current lithium or other types of packs for that matter. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this battery ready to charge. So if you guys had some confusion about that, we talk about batteries all the time here on Brian Phillips RC, and we will help get you up to speed so that you can operate safely. Lithium polymer packs are the most dangerous thing in your plane, more so than the prop that spins at hundreds, if not thousands of revolutions per minute, because that won't burn your house down unless you try really hard.
Yeah. Be pretty.
So please be careful. This is the #1 safety device between you and a fire and your brain, okay? Your brain will do most of the work, the charger will do some of it, okay? So plug this thing in. This is going to balance charge your battery. Now, lithium polymer packs start at 4.2 volts when we're ready to fly, and they drop down to somewhere in the tune of about 3.3 to 3.6 volts. Some people will draw them as low as like 2.9. So if you watch long enough, you'll see I'll overdraw a pack, and that's difficult, or it's hard on the chemistry. And then these packs, you can see, because it's clear on the side, you can see the 2 cells. They make up this dimension by half of that dimension, and they're just stacked like that, okay? So the way that they make these lithium polymer packs is they have a long piece of lithium that's out like this, and then it's like a film, very, very thin, and they just fold them, fold. And then there's a piece of paper between each of those, and that creates chemistry that is going to allow for charging and discharging, and charging and discharging. And we operate on the very top of the voltage range. So we operate way up here, okay? So if this is 4.2 and this is 0, it goes something like this. Charge, discharge, dead, okay? Now it doesn't actually drop to 0, but what happens when you fall out of that safe band of about 4.2 volts to about 3-ish volts, then the chemistry gets more unstable, okay? And unstable chemistry can lead to catastrophic failures up to and including fires from these things. And that's why you use balanced chargers. You don't charge too fast, and you certainly never try to charge through the discharge lead, because that would pump voltage in and you would have no way to balance that between the two cells, okay? So you can actually start a fire by doing that. So if you don't know what you're doing, learn a little bit about the lipos, and we will help you do that here. I mean, as you can see, we've got lots of lipos. This is what I would call a dumb lipo. This is what I would call a smart lipo. So smart lipos are gonna basically be having some sort of a self-discharge chip or balance chip that's built in somewhere in this general vicinity. And it's gonna take and monitor how hot it gets. It's gonna monitor the differential between cell 1, cell 2, cell 3 in this case. This just has 2, this has 3. And then later, as you advance through the ranks in your flying career, you'll end up with big, huge batteries like this. This is 7000 6S and bigger. And then what happens is you start stacking these together in series again. So you get 6 plus 6 in series becomes 12S. And from there on, and there are bigger than that. So just so you know, this is a trainer, 1300 milliamp hours, speaks to how many amp hours expressed as milliamp hours, or 1,000th of an amp. So if you were to take this as 1.3 amp hours, okay? So you can discharge 1.3 amps for an hour. We're gonna draw considerably more, which means you're not gonna go for an hour, okay? And it's gonna be varying depending on the load and how much motor is, spinning fast and how much load is on the motor and all those types of things. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna quickly plug this in. I'll show you how it works. We've got these flashing lights. It's kind of like a screensaver. Standby means that, flashing. Full means solid. Error means flashing. Charge means red. Now watch this. As I see how there's, I don't know what to do now. Oh, well, we're gonna stick it in the one it fits in. Then as you can see, these two lights turn red. Now I'm noticing it's a little bit tough to fit that in the first time, so we're just gonna go, goodness gracious. There we go, so it's in. Now that's keyed, so you can only put it in wrong if you really try hard, okay? So don't try hard, because you'll probably succeed if you try hard enough. This is a smart battery checker. It's gonna do a little bit more. It's gonna take it one step and read the data pin from a smart battery or a regular balance lead. Same thing here. This is sort of like a simpler version, but also has a built-in alarm. So what I can do is I can unplug this battery, which is still charging, and I can take and line up the polarity. It says negative, and it goes 1S all the way through 8S, okay? So I just line up the negative most battery. It beeps, 2 cells, 7.6 volts. Cell number 1 is 3.82. Cell number 3 is 8.1. Okay, now let's compare that to a more sophisticated choice like this. This is significantly more expensive. It's gonna give you live readings, and you're gonna be able to see all sorts of smart data. Now on a smart pack, there's gonna be more going on, but this also gives you delimitation of the percentage of power left for flying. Now, when you plug this in, you'll notice that you only plug in the balance lead. You don't plug in the discharge lead. And that is a function of this particular type of inexpensive, ready-to-fly charger, okay? So if you are learning about this and you're saying, but Brian, I've got a much nicer charger. I'd like to use my much nicer charger. And then to that, I would say, yeah, I would like to also use my nicer charger. And so I'm gonna show you how I would normally do this. And this is a real, no BS way. You have to search through your drawer of millions of connectors. You find your nicer charger here. This is an S2200. There's balance leads on both sides, but then there's big EC5 and an EC3. This is called an XT60, okay? And again, all these names, that's called a mic. This is actually a, that balance lead is a Hextronics balance charge port, which I believe is still technically a micro connector, but I don't know if it's micro pH. Micro pH is a different style. It's got a different pitch. Okay, so then this is a little adapter I use for the balance or for the discharge lead, and that gives me a JST, okay?
And
now
that's a JST, not an XT60.
I said XT60, I apologize, guys. This is an XT60. My apologies. This is a JST, okay? Gosh, I wish you would have caught me earlier. Okay, so we plug this in. You can see it populates the screen with 7.6 volts. And then I'm gonna go ahead and plug in the balance lead. And look at that. Now all of a sudden it populates all that data. You can press this, scroll up to the speed, and this is 1300 milliamps, so 1.3 amps like we talked about, and then start. Okay, and you can see again, you've got live data that tells you what's happening, but there's also a second charger built in. This is a dual charger, okay? Now, this is also a 200 watt charger on each side. This one is just the same except smaller, and it's 55 watts. So the reason I show you this is because this one is even smaller. This one here is gonna be 1,000 milliamp hours, and it's gonna give you 10 millivolts of balance accuracy, okay? So, and it doesn't give us any other specs. So we're bringing in 1,000 milliamp hours is what we're charging at. So we're charging at 1 amp hour up to 3S. So that tells you what your actual wattage would be if you want to do Ohm's law. But I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to charge it over here. I just wanted to show you it can be done. Okay, now I'm going to just come back over to my basic charger. I'm going to plug this in, and I'm going to let that cook while we go through the unbox. Now, the other thing too is sometimes you're going to have other batteries that you want to use, and that's totally fine. You don't necessarily have to use the one that came with this particular aircraft, but in this case, we're going to use that. But we've got another similar Venom pack here. It's got the same balance port, but then it's got an XT60. And yes, this is an XT60. My apologies earlier for that. And so you're probably thinking, but that's what I have, Brian, and how do I use that? Well, you're going to have to make an adapter. And so if you make an adapter, then you can use this also in your Easy Trainer. So don't be afraid of using different batteries so long as they have the same amount of cells. So in this case, this would be a 2-cell. How do we know? Well, it says 7.4 volts, but you can look by the number of wires. So it's going to be 2 minus 1, or excuse me, plus 1 is going to give you this. Okay, so 3. That's one way to tell. And then sometimes they just say S on the side too. So without further ado, we are going to put this battery back. And we do talk a lot about batteries on this channel because honestly, let's be honest, it's just not a very exciting topic, but it is one of the biggest safety issues in RC. And so you want to be as careful as you can so that you have a great experience. And also you want to pick the right airplane so you can have a great experience. And that's what we also help you do here on Brian Phillips RC. So without further ado, we're going to take it out of the box and show you what it looks like. All right, so we got one of the wings here. We got this nice little scoop on the end, kind of like a winglet. And then we've got this inboard portion here that slides in. Plastic reinforces. They've taped the aileron servo. So this is an aileron. So there's 2 of these ailerons work in opposite directions at any given time. One goes up while one goes down, and that rolls the plane, and vice versa. Okay? Talk more about that later. Okay, so we have a manual in here. It's only partially folded. I hate folded manuals. That drives me crazy. We'll refer to the manual as little as possible in this video because I'm a man. Okay, all right, so we got the other wing, and you'll notice that these things will mate up in the middle, okay? Because this is a high wing, or like on the top of the fuselage, okay? So the fuselage is the body of the airplane. Now I'm seeing in here there's some sort of a cable. Now this cable is probably never going to be used by you, so you can just, I didn't make it down the stairs. So that's for updating the Reflex's firmware. There are things down here, by the way. So underneath that USB, good Lord, that is hard to get at. Oh my goodness. Okay, there it is. There's a nut and bolt sack there. So this has some weird linkages here. Okay. There's one control horn and then one linkage and one fuel tube. Okay. Oh, those are what hold the wings on, I bet. Cool. All right, and then we have the horizontal stabilizer that also, in this case, has the elevator on it, which is pretty standard on a horizontal stabilizer. It's a one-piece horizontal stabilizer with a pinch-style hinge. And you're probably thinking to yourself, you know, that looks pretty flexible. It's got a little bit of flex to it, but it's not crazy because there is reinforcement in a lot of these parts. See that black thing through the middle? So that rod is either made of carbon fiber or fiberglass. I'm gonna go with fiberglass probably on this one, okay? And the same is true on these big wings. Now these wings are not near as flexible. They have a little bit of give to them, but not so much that it's gonna fly bad. See, and right there you can tell there's that black thing that goes from here all the way down, and that's a wing spar, okay? And it looks like that one is possibly, kind of hard to tell, probably fiberglass. Okay, so fiberglass is usually the cheaper commodity over carbon fiber, but it's also going to be equally strong. It's just not quite as light per similar sized piece. Okay, so the density is higher. Okay, look at that. We've got the body here fully assembled, it looks like, except for the wings, of course, as you can tell. There's an inlet here so that you can get some air going in, and an exit for the air to come back out, and that's important so you can keep everything nice and cool. Very thick rudder and not big. And that's driven by a 9-gram digital servo. Okay, and then there's another 9-gram digital servo. These are FMS 9G DP, so it's a digital plastic. Okay, that's what that model number stands for. Then of course we got a brushless motor. You can always see that it's a brushless motor because it's got that stator on the outside, that bell housing that spins around. You can usually see the magnetic coils inside. If it was a brushed motor, you would have a brush that actually touches, like a commutator ring. It touches, and then on either side of the shaft, it excites the circuit and it spins the same way that this would excite and spin. But what's happening is when this one spins, the brushes actually eventually get worn down to where they don't touch, and then your motor ceases to exist. Also, there's a lot of friction and lower efficiency generally on a brushed motor. Now, a brushed motor doesn't mean it's not a motor and it's not acceptable, but many times we have found that we can control brushless motors better because we have electronic speed controllers now, and they are known as ESCs, electric speed controllers, or electronic speed controllers. I call them electric speed controllers. There we go. So that comes out like this, and then you can see a receiver in there. And I'm actually gonna show you one trick right now because I don't wanna fight this another time. So I like to do this when I get canopies that might potentially be difficult to take off. And so the first thing I do is I grab a little bit of tape and I rip that tape off. I mean, it's like nothing fancy here, guys. And I just take this and I stick this down just like that. Okay? Boy, that does not want to stay, does it? Okay, so I stick that down on there. Then I stick that, and there's a little bit of paint and stuff, so I'm not super worried about this being perfect looking. And then I just do that little kind of jog in it. Okay. Then I press this down gently, and then look what happens. Then you've got this nice tab you can pull on, and that's gonna help you get your canopy on. And you'll notice that on a lot of other planes, you're gonna find that that already exists. Some planes do, some planes don't. Depends on the manufacturing technique. By the way, this is very slick and very smooth, nice finish on it. Same with the wings. I don't see a lot of these mold release bumps like that. Some of these models we used to get had those all over the place. Now they're just beautiful. Okay, so also the other thing is you're gonna notice there's 2 retention clips there. If you wanna point at one once you get it to focus.
Right.
Yep. And so that is so that when this goes down, it'll snap, okay? But then also, there's a little passage there where the electronic speed control wires go up into the brushless motor, and so you can see them channeled through here. Now let's talk about the components inside real quick now that we've got this. Actually, let's demonstrate the tab once, okay? Everything is very slick on this model, so you might notice I'm kind of dropping and slamming things around. It's because they're sliding out of my hands. Okay, so watch. So it's snapped, that holds it in nice and tight, and then I can pull up on this, and that's gonna help me get that up and out. And I can also tell there's a lot of mold release still on this model because all this tape doesn't wanna stick down here, okay? If that becomes a problem, just cut off the part and redo it, okay? That second piece of tape will stick better. Now, before I get any further, let's continue inside of our build, or unbox. I wanna go back inside of there, but we'll come back to that. Here's one of the wing spars, wing joiner, okay? So listen. Boy, that sounds like carbon fiber, but it's white.
Yeah, it looks like fiberglass.
Yeah, it looks like fiberglass to me. Well, maybe it is just carbon fiber. Maybe it is fiberglass. Okay, so now we've got something in here, which should be, okay, we got the transmitter. Okay, so we'll talk about that for a minute. So this is a ready-to-fly plane, which means that everything you need to fly it is gonna be in the package, with the exception of, and we're not always sure until we get them, batteries. So we do need to provide our own 4 AA batteries. Okay, so we'll slide this back on. Got some nice ribbing here for texture. 3-position switch, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2-position switch, throttle, rudder, elevator, ailerons, lanyard attachment point if you'd like to use one. These are both power buttons. Different choices. And this runs on S4 6-channel mini 24 or 2.4 gigahertz. Excuse me. Okay, so that's everything that was inside of the package has been pulled out now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some time. We'll actually build this plane right now, and it's gonna be an easy peasy follow along. So we hope you will. We're gonna grab some batteries and be right back. Okay, so we got 4 AA batteries. We did have to provide those ourselves. And I'm just gonna slide them in here. Flat side to the spring. Flat side to the spring. And if you can't tell, or if you need a reminder, it's right inside of there. Shows a drawing of how the batteries are to go. I'm assuming that you probably know how to load batteries if you're doing a radio controlled airplane, but if you need help, you're in the right place at Brian Phillips RC, so. Is there a power button somewhere?
You have to hold them both at the same time.
Okay. So that's very weird. So I guess we'll figure out what's going on with that. I think that's probably normal, but we'll find out. That's one of the beauties of watching a channel like this, is we will help you figure out weird things. Generally speaking, if I were to design a ready-to-fly plane for a beginner, I would make it just like everything they expect to get to on the next plane. But what we found is that many of the ready-to-fly trainers we get, they do a lot of weird one-off things, and that becomes very confusing for you as a beginner. Because then you go to do your second plane and you're like, but we expected that. So we will point out those nuances as we see them. This is one of the nuances, because here's the thing. If you're gonna fly FMS planes, generally speaking, you're gonna be getting a plug-and-fly plane, not a ready-to-fly plane. And what that means is you're gonna be providing your own receiver of choice. This is a receiver. It's 6 channels, which is pretty sweet. Okay, so there's actually additional channels on there, okay? And then it goes into what's called a reflex V2 in this case, and mine was pulled up. That is a spatially aware thing, because that is going to help us to keep the plane level when we let go of the sticks, and also stabilized when we introduce some sort of wind to the equation by flying on a windy day, okay? So now, what's this thing, you might ask? This is an ESC, an electronic speed controller. So it's a 20 amp ESC, motor, battery. So this comes from your balance lead. This is a big heat sink on the top. You can see it's like a big chunk of metal. And then down here, there's some electronics, let's call them, MOSFETs and things like that. So anyway, that goes down there. And what that accomplishes for us is it takes the voltage from our battery, which we have this handy dandy little warning. Forgot to cut that off. So I might trip and fall and, oh, dang it, fell into the garbage can. But seriously though, be careful. So that's gonna take the voltage from our battery, which is at 8.4 volts when we first start, and it's gonna regulate the voltage necessary to run to the 3 wires so that this motor will spin the direction we want it to spin. Now keep in mind, you do want this blade to push the plane. It's a pusher prop, and it's mounted on a motor that is indifferent to what direction you put it. Okay, the motor doesn't know any better. It's gonna do the same thing left or right, or clockwise or counterclockwise if you wish. And for that reason, these electronic speed controllers have 3 wires, and you're like, well, then how do you know the polarity of the motor? You know, with a brushed motor, we have a plus and a minus, or we have like a, you know, one direction is gonna make it one way, the other direction is gonna make it the other way. Well, on a 3-wire brushless motor, you're gonna have different sections that get energized and de-energized, energized and de-energized, energized and de-energized in certain timing, and it's gonna pull the shaft, in this case the stator, it's a bell housing that's gonna go around. It goes from this position to this. And then there's feedback to the ESC, and it's like ready, 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 next thing you know, or it's just running. It depends on the type of ESC, but in this case, just for easy figuring, you've got 3 wires. If it goes clockwise with 1, 2, 3, okay, switch any of the 3, and you're gonna get the other direction rotation, okay? That's just for easy figuring. And also you can program these ESCs to reverse the motor so it runs the other direction without switching the direction of the wires in many cases. Now, I'm not gonna say that you should do that or you need to do that, but if you need to do that, you may need to purchase a programmer for your particular ESC. In this case, this is the ESC. Show them again. And then what you would do if you were gonna program this ESC is you would either unplug this wire, which is our signal, power and ground, so it's our servo cable that goes over to the reflex in this case, okay? You're gonna plug straight into your programmer, you're gonna energize the programmer, and then that's going to allow you to set it up based on a series of different lights and push buttons, okay? Now, sometimes they're more of a digital thing like that XBC battery checker we showed you earlier, but it just depends on the programming tool. Also, some programming tools just have different plugs you do to make different decisions, and they're octagonal or they have like a bunch of different shapes. And sometimes they have books that you open up and they have different button presses and different flashes that correspond to different settings. Some of the settings would include forward or reverse, braking, which means that when you let off the throttle and you bring it down to 0, instead of allowing this to tractor being forced in a spinning motion by the wind, it will hold itself still. Not necessarily here or here, but just whenever it comes to a stop, it'll hold it there. And it resists movement. That's braking, okay? So it's really nice in cars. It's really nice on sailplanes. And this would be almost like a sailplane, really, because you're gonna hand launch it. You know, there's no landing gear. And you're gonna belly land it. So having that braking on is a really nice function. Now, the other cool thing is you can many times program your electronic speed control from your throttle. And the way you would normally do that is you would basically go full throttle, plug in your battery, wait for a series of beeps, and then down to change the setting, or up to change the setting, or actuate the setting. But you have to read about your particular ESC. They do all work a little bit different. Usually braking is the first option. Then there's things like timing, reverse, startup for like a heli versus an airplane, because there's like a soft startup for a helicopter, and with an airplane, it's like full bore right now. So there's a lot of different things you can do. And then of course braking, like I said. Now, if you get into more sophisticated ESCs, sometimes you can reverse on the fly, pun intended, because you can actually reverse the direction of the prop rotation while you're in the process of being in the air flying. Or on landing, for instance. And we do that a lot here on this channel with Avian ESCs, which is a premium brand. It's a Spectrum offering, and we like to use them a lot. But also Predator makes a reversing ESC as well. And we did them in the 1.4 meter, which is not shown there, but it's a T28. Mm-hmm. And we did it as recently on, I thought we did on the P47. Did we do it on the P47?
Oh, I think that was.
We just did one the other day. What was it? I can't think of which one it was. I just remember it didn't work well when we tried to do the pilot fatigue. It was a jet. The F-15. The F-15 from FMS. So when you get ready to do that, you can check out our video. It's already published. You're ready to rock and roll with it. Or is it?
Well, it's not yet, but it should be by the time
by the time we do this. Okay, so anyway, getting back to the point, now that we're just kind of knocking out questions one by one as we go, we're gonna keep going. And if I've missed something, I apologize sincerely. I'm not trying to miss anybody's answers that they need. And I know the desperation you feel when you're brand new in the hobby and you feel very lost. We don't want you to feel that way. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna quickly put this back in. I'm just gonna give it a bunch of twists. So you can watch this channel to try to answer specifics, and you may be a little bit let down, but if you watch this channel and you watch it, then you will get a lot of answers to where you won't necessarily need to ask the questions. Okay, and truthfully, we have put out so many videos that I'm wondering if maybe this would make better sense if I just stuck it back here. Because this is not spatially aware, so it doesn't need to be in a certain mounting position. So I can just push that back there.
Where does the battery go?
That's why I was keeping this area opened, because I'm assuming the battery's gonna fit about in this general vicinity. This is the antenna. Don't damage that last 28 or so millimeters. I'm actually sliding this down. See that? That's a protective cover. Also helps to prevent the damage to the tip there. All right, so we're just sliding that in. All right, so we should be good there. And we'll just kind of, I don't like the way that's wanting to pop up. It's not a huge issue, so I'm not super worried about it, but it's just kind of annoying to me because I'd rather it stay. Oh yeah, there we go. That's way better. See what I did? I just pushed it down. Okay, great. So now we know that we'll be ready to receive our JST battery, and we have lots of JST ended battery, the 1300 milliamp 2S. Pretty simple stuff. Okay, cool. So now let's start assembly of this aircraft. So we need glue. It does not come in your plane. I don't understand why. This is ready to fly. We're gonna talk to FMS and say, hey, what the heck, FMS? Why are you not sending glue with the ready to fly? Well, this is glue. You can buy this for cheap. You need it, it's huge. You want it, it's China glue, okay? So FMS sells this, it's like $5 or $6. Just get 3 or 4 tubes of it. You will use it and you'll be like, wow, I didn't realize I needed that stuff, but I do. Okay, so let's dry fit this wing first. You'll see that it goes in like this and stops. And camera crew told me I needed to glue that. Did camera crew see glue in the instructions? Okay. So you see where this is gonna glue? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take special attention to where this is gonna touch, okay? And then I gotta glue in that control horn. So I know approximately where that's gonna go. So I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do this, and then you guys can try to copy if you want. China. So you put the China glue on, and yes, that is seriously what they call it, China glue. It's like rubber cement basically, but the rubber cement might actually eat your foam, so don't just use rubber cement, use this, because it's dirt cheap. It's actually cheaper than rubber cement, trust me, I've tried.
Do they make rubber cement anymore?
I'm sure that somebody does. Oh look, yeah. So now I'm just gonna glue this area here. I don't have enough on my tip, so I gotta get this a little bit more. Woo. I'm gonna put a little bit in this little cavity here. Blah. See, it's just like thick, mucousy sort of stuff. It's actually called mucilage, if I am totally clear about this. But mucilage is what they call the product at Hobby King, which is also China glue. And then we also use another brand of this called foam to foam. It's a little bit more expensive, comes in a bigger tube, and that's a Horizon offering, okay? So you can buy that from our links too, depending on if you're gonna buy this as a plug and fly or if you're gonna buy it as a ready to fly. Now that being said, if you decide to buy this as a ready to fly, are you in your own light there? Yeah, I was gonna say. If you decide to buy this as a plug and fly, which means you provide your own receiver, that's perfectly okay, and you'll probably find that you have a little bit better radio setup, radio control. And that's one thing I want to bring up to anybody who's watching that has seen our channel for years. You guys know we use a lot of Spectrum gear, and we've done other things like OpenTX and Radio Master style OpenTX. I think we did the T8SG. We've done a bunch of different ready to flies, and the ready to flies never are as good as our computerized transmitters. But I want you to understand, when you're brand new to the hobby, it might make good sense for you to just get the ready to fly and figure out if you like it. If you don't like it, then what's the sense in getting an expensive transmitter? Okay, so now you put that glue on there, and because we have to slide that in there at an angle, we have to be a little bit careful to let this sit too long. You actually want it to set up, and this is going to become a contact adhesive as it sets up, okay? So I'm going to get a little bit on the top too. See, we're putting glue on both sides of the surface, and a very kind of limited amount up here, to be frank. I'd like to do more, but it's kind of hard to tell exactly where it's going to hit. Okay, so you can see it if you kind of look at an angle there. So it's clear, and you won't see it after it's all set up, which is nice. But this doesn't need much time to set up because it's taken us so long to apply it. So now I can just slide this in sideways, and see how sticky it is already? Good lordy, lord. Okay, so it's in the hole, okay? And I'm seating it forward. And then I'm just gonna make sure this goes from top to bottom. I'm pushing on the vertical stabilizer. And that's it. And then there's a little bit of glue that got out here, so I'll just wipe that off with my fingers. In fact, I'm gonna take and roll this off. I don't know if I just missed and just like literally put it on the wrong spot, or if it just got spread as I was putting it over there. You see what I'm doing? I'm just using that I spread it with, just kind of rolling it off of there like boogers. So this stuff works super fantastic, guys. I tell you what, if you're not gonna get a plane from our links in the video description below, and you wanna still support us by buying something, this glue is really good. I like it a lot. We use it all the time. It's probably, I would say it's every bit as good as the foam to foam. Foam to foam has maybe just a little bit longer shelf life. It's got a little thicker tube, which is kind of nice, but also makes you lose a little bit more of it at times, because the thinner tube, since it's an aluminized tube, this one doesn't hold its shape as bad, which makes it kind of goop out extras that you didn't mean to squish. And also the smaller size tube is not a bad thing necessarily, because of what that does for you is it means there's less that will have a propensity to want to dry out in tube. Although we haven't seen that they dry out bad in tube, we have built a lot of planes recently, and if you're like where we would have been, 10 years ago, where we'd build one plane and then it might be 4 or 5 months before we touch it again, you'll tend to have a little bit more issues there. Okay, so now that that's glued in, you can kind of just sight, make sure it's square and true, down the length of the plane, all that stuff, okay? Looks good enough to me. So now I'm gonna go into this bag. They stapled it shut. So we'll unstaple this bag. Goodness gracious. It's just really biting. Okay, so once we unstaple that, pull out the control arm, okay? Now again, the reason this isn't glued is probably because they saved, like a certain amount of money in labor on the production of this aircraft. So now it's just gonna be easier if I just put this thing out. I just found that staple didn't actually come off of my hand earlier. So this is called a plane stand. You don't absolutely need it, but it does make your life easier. So if you know you're gonna be doing a lot of planes, you might as well just get one. This thing's like maybe 20 bucks. And we have links to all sorts of stuff like this. If you don't know how to find the links usually just go to the video description below. But if you find something that's maybe like the plane stand, you may have to follow the link that says like, what does it say? Like supplies?
It might be supplies, but I think there is a link just for the plane stand.
Yeah, but we have lots of links above and beyond just the normal plane that we're reviewing for a given video. So that if you guys are looking for something that's maybe a little bit similar, or you watch a video and you fall in love with the plane and then it's out of stock, we try not to do that to you guys. But we know that you could be watching this after the planes are back out of stock.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll push that in. That's a really easy install. But the thing is, it makes me nervous, so I'm gonna actually smoosh that around and I'm gonna pull it out. You guys see the strings? You're kind of, I'm in my own light.
You're in your light.
Okay, so can you come here? Thank you. See this? When I pull it, all the strings come up, okay? That's usually a really good indication that it's gonna be super strong, okay? Because it's really tacked up. And you'll get to the point where it's been like, what, a minute? We're to hold up the whole plane, practically. All right, so the next move is gonna be to install this linkage. So this linkage, oops, these things go onto the main wing. All right, so this rubber thing, it's actually fuel hose, it goes on here. And then that's gonna help, excuse me, that's gonna help hold this closed. And then that's gonna go onto there, but you have to start it into the servo here. But I don't know which hole they recommend in the manual because I haven't read it. So let's go ahead and pop open the manual. This is one of the few places we actually read the manual.
Page 8.
This is gonna talk about the reflex. This is gonna talk about the transmitter. Why did you go way over there? This is gonna talk about the transmitter. Okay, this is the reflex. Is this, what the heck?
That's just separate.
Oh, that's the transmitter. Okay, I was gonna say. They don't even tell you how to put the tail on. Goodness gracious. Well, now they do, so the tail's on now. So they're suggesting foam safe CA. Yeah, I wouldn't use CA. They're saying to use the outside hole, but they only have 3 holes on theirs. We have 4, okay? I'm just gonna go with, if there's 4 and they're talking about 3, I'm gonna still go to the outside, okay? They do want us to go to the outside hole on the elevator. Yeah, see, here's where control horn and servo arm settings. Oh, they do want us to go in one. Well, good thing the one drawing says one thing and the other drawing says the other thing. Okay, so I'm gonna go in one from the top. And then this one's gonna go to the outside, but I have to set the length by spinning it in or out. Okay. All right, so then the next thing we have to do is basically put the wing on. This is a pretty easy build, so I was just double checking the position of that linkage. Now, until we energize this thing, the servos aren't gonna pop to life, so I don't wanna mess with it. Now, you can use an XBC battery checker or similar to hook up the elevator output and actually center the servo. But I still feel like there's enough room for idiosyncrasies between transmitters where you're gonna have this fine adjustment. Now, that might be a bit of an I don't normally worry about it. I just wait until I use the actual equipment where possible. But if you're gluing a piece of equipment together and you're gonna have a wire embedded and you can't get to it, then a good way to do it is with an XBC battery checker. Okay. So we have a wing joiner here, and we have 2 wings, and we just have to untape our wire. Okay. So this is just tape that we don't need now. Okay. So this is for the, would be the right aileron. And I'm not sure how this works, so we're just gonna slide it together and try to figure it out. Pretty basic stuff. I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting it through there though. There it goes. Okay, so that's all the way in. And then I'm just gonna feed this one. This one, of course, being the left wing. My canopy fell off if you guys couldn't tell already. These wires have to eventually make it up to where the reflex is, right? Or, you guys see what I'm gonna do here? Yeah, the wire's right here. There's the wire for the ailerons, okay? Here's the wire. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna drop this in and just kind of guide it through by holding the fuse like this, okay? I can see the wire. You wanna come around where they can see the wire. So the wires drop down. Here it is, just like this. Okay, so now that we have that wire pulled through, I can just plug it into either of the two aileron ports, okay? So I've got the brown is up and the yellow is down, or the orange is down. So just plug that one in. Doesn't matter which one you plug it into, okay, generally. All right, so now you can see there's a void in there, and you wanna just make sure that that wire's dropping down, so that when you feed this other one in, can you see over the wing?
Well, I'm gonna probably go to this side in a second.
So this is gonna slide in. You got a slot you have to find. And once you get that found, okay, so that's started. So now I'm gonna very precariously attempt to get this fed forward. And I'm catching every other possible thing I could catch. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so now that that's started, am I supposed to wait for you here, camera crew? I can't tell if you can see. All right, so now I'm pulling this through gently as I pull the wing in, okay? Just kind of working back and forth, pulling the excess, make sure it doesn't get in a pinch point. There it is, now it's in. Okay, and then these two doohickeys, now they go in here and snap, okay? Now I don't know if there's supposed to be like a pin that goes between those. See? See how there's a pinhole? Like, is there supposed to be something tying those in?
I don't think so.
So anyway, all right, so we got the ailerons here. Brown is up again. Brown is up so that you get your polarity correct. Snap that in, all right? So I'm just gonna kind of work that back into that empty spot back there that's not being used for anything important. And same thing with these wires that we earlier tucked in back there, okay? So now everything should be pretty much where it needs to be now. This should already be bound, but I guess we'll find out in a few minutes if I need to dig that back out. It's not a big deal because I have all sorts of wires attached to it still. And notice my reflex is not square. That needs to be true to the plane. I think mine might have come loose in shipping. Whoops. I just pulled that case open. If you pull yours open, they just snap straight back down, okay? So what I'm thinking is I'm gonna just leave it where it is and we'll hope it doesn't glide at a weird angle. If it does, we'll know that's what's going on and we can resolve it. Okay, now normally at this point, we'd be doing radio setup, but because this is a ready to fly, we don't really need to set up the radio. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a minute, we'll clean up, check the battery, and then come back with some more details. All right, so we're gonna check the voltage on this battery since it's charged. Okay, so we're at 98%. That's good enough for me. And these chargers, there's one thing I've learned about the inexpensive ready-to-fly chargers. They either overcharge or undercharge. I'll take undercharged every day. Because chemical instability comes from overcharging, and that's where the dangers come from. So if you're undercharged, not a huge deal, just get a little bit less performance. Okay, so this is not on. I'm gonna never do this way, except this one I can't get to stay on. See, it's flashing. Now it's on. But I don't understand if this is still on. So I don't know if that is like a low battery condition or what the exact deal is. So we're gonna pause and figure that out. All right, so I figured it out. I'm just gonna show you the full sequence of events, okay? So the battery, we did read the manual. It was useless, as usual.
Yes.
So we plug in the battery, which is unusual for a plane. That's not generally a safe idea, okay? You can slide it in here, it's flashing, everybody's excited inside of there. Get your canopy on. This is pointed toward my belly. If it gives full throttle, I can control this still, okay? Always put the plane in a position where you can control it for your safety. Press this, then that, let go.
Wait, do that again.
Press this, then that, let go. Let it arm. Going through the dance sequence. Elevator's not moving because it's not hooked up. Okay, now this is where throttle is, so. Okay, so throttle's working. Okay. All right, so just be aware there's no throttle cut. These switches do nothing on this plane that I can tell, or I can't tell yet, because there's auto leveling. Okay. There's stabilization. There's nothing. So middle is nothing. Stabilization is back. Okay. Auto leveling is here, towards your belly. Finds the quickest route to home, to level, okay? So I'm in nothing, so we can hook up our elevator. Now, why do we need to be in nothing? Because we don't want the elevator to be trying to level itself while we're upside down, okay? So I'm gonna lay this on a flat surface, make it easy on myself. I wanna have this and this square, and I want it to be in the outside hole, okay? See, we're really close already, awesome. Good job, FMS. That never happens. Mm-mm. I mean, never happens.
Never.
You would think it would just accidentally happen once in a while, but it does, like, we almost never see that they are lined up like that. So if yours isn't lined up, you have to screw it out to make this go up, or screw it in to make it go down, okay? And you can see I'm having a heck of a time getting that thing to push through, and so I'm going to opt to grab a pair of needle nose pliers. Yours may not give you this problem, but mine is. Okay, just pop it through and then slide this thing back, and then that holds. Now, there's one other thing we haven't done, and since the plane's upside down, let's go ahead and do it right now. We need to mark for the CG at 65 to 75 millimeters. If you don't have calipers, you can just do the Google thing and figure out what 65 to 75 is. It inches. In my case, I have these digital calipers. They work really handy. I'm gonna just make a mark a little bit out from the wing. Make a mark a little bit out from the wing. And then I'm gonna darken it. And I'm gonna darken it. Now, why do I darken it? So I can see it. Now I'm gonna go to 75, which is almost certainly gonna be where the wing spar is, and that's the range for the center of gravity. Now the center of gravity, as you can see, is exactly on the edge of the wing spar. And generally when you fly a plane, there's nose heavy and tail heavy. There's also left and right balance, but we generally don't models that come in this type of setup don't have a lot of left-right issues, so we don't generally look or talk about them. But what's happening is that doesn't just balance your model, that's where it balances on. So I'm right at the very front hole where I put my battery. Okay, if I were to go to the back hole, it's gonna be like falling off my fingers, which is good if you're a beginner pilot. It's gonna be nose heavy, meaning it's gonna wanna lean toward the nose, right? Now, what does that do for you? A nose heavy plane tends to fly exceptionally stable, but also that weakens the amount of elevator authority you have, because when you go to resist all that, it's got more weight to lift up. Because that depends, that tells the plane, like, where is it pivoting? That's the center of gravity. So the center of gravity, if it's further nose heavy, it's gonna tend to be heavier on the elevator, but it's gonna fly more stable because it's got more weight that's like pulling it into the ground, okay? Now, if it's tail heavy, meaning it's further back here, then it's gonna be like leaning, the tail's gonna lean down. What's gonna happen is you'll have a very pitch sensitive plane that's almost hard to control. And there is a saying, if you're not already aware of it, and it is tail heavy planes fly once, okay? So, because you crash them on maiden, right? Now, if it's exceptionally tail heavy, you might crash it. If it's just on the edge of tail heavy, meaning that, you know, you put your fingers on that front hole, okay, or that front mark, and it leans back a little, that's okay. If you put your fingers into that back hole and it like falls off your fingers into your lap, that's okay. Because I would be okay on a beginner plane being a little bit nose heavy, but you don't want to put the fingers on this front set of holes, okay, and have it lean out of your fingers and fall forward. That means you're too nose heavy. You're probably going to have a hard time flying it, okay? So the way you adjust your center of gravity is you take your battery and you move it forward or back in the tray, just like that. So a beginner's going to want to have it further forward, and a more experienced pilot's probably going to want to have it further back. Okay? I'm just going to go right in the middle. Why do I want it right in the middle? Because I want to demonstrate how the plane will fly in kind of a nominal range that's going to help to demonstrate what the capabilities of the aircraft are. So it leans back on the front hole and it leans forward on the back hole. That's what I like. So that means if you found the middle, if you're leaning back and you're leaning forward, that means somewhere in the middle, it's going to balance. I don't care so long as it fits in that range. Does that make sense, Kimber? Did I say that right?
It does.
Okay,
And
so
kind of, some things are personal preference a little bit.
center of gravity is truthfully somewhat subjective, but it's also technically not subjective, meaning that aircraft have a definitive center of gravity as per their design, okay? It doesn't mean that you like the way it flies as designed, okay?
True.
So there's a certain amount of subjectivity on where you want to put the center of gravity, okay? Some planes that you want to go up and thermal in the air for hours and hours and hours on end, you might want the center of gravity back further, because when you're going real slow, it's going to be more responsive still. An overstable aircraft that's got a really tail heavy plane is going to tend to be easier to fly at very slow speeds, okay? Or high alpha configurations without losing control. But when you lose control, it breaks right now. Then you're in stall. And it's harder to recover because sometimes you can't get the nose to go back down. And what's the first thing you do when you stall an airplane, meaning you slow down to the point where there's not enough lift, it's gonna do this, or it's gonna tip, or it's gonna tip, or it's gonna come up and just stop. And that's weird because you do get that on some planes, and that's a great way to stall. But this one, in my guess, is when you do stall it, you'll be flying along, a little bit of nose up, you get out of the throttle, you're gliding, glide, 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 glide. It's just gonna go like that, like a glider. Because that's the way they design easy trainers. And this is an easy trainer V2. So they have actually corrected it from something that it did before they didn't like. So let's talk again about controls. So you are responsible as a pilot to make sure your plane is gonna be safe to fly, okay? Elevator up, elevator down. You see the direction? When you pull this down, the nose should go up. When you push this down, the nose should go down. Imagine you're a little pilot sitting in there and this is between your legs and you're flying the plane like that, okay? Roll left, roll right. Yaw left, yaw right, okay? And then there is no throttle cut, so as soon as you move the stick, it's going to throttle up, okay? So there's throttle, and that's off. And then you have yaw left, yaw right. Now, I'm just gonna say this. I'm an adult, almost 40-year-old man. My hands are used for a living every day, and I don't know what you are watching this video. So here's the thing, I'm just gonna tell you. I like these textured dots. It helps a lot for me to hang on to this. This is a small controller. I find it especially easy to drop. I don't like that there's not throttle cuts, even on ready to flies, especially ready to flies, because that is the most vulnerable type of person to being cut by this, the second most dangerous part of our entire RC experience in fixed wing aircraft, okay? Now, just use good discipline and a throttle cut is not necessary, is what some people would say. And I would say throttle cut is part of good discipline. Start learning it as soon as you get into a transmitter where you can use it. It is going to be one of the biggest safety issues that you can control. Secondly, start being careful with your batteries by using them and then not charging them until you're ready to fly again. It's tough. It takes a lot of sacrifice because you have to know when you're going to fly. And if you're like me and you say, okay, I want to go out and fly. So you grab your battery, you grab your plane, you get out and you're like, wow, it's a tornado out here. I can't fly. Well, you're probably gonna try to fly because if you're like me, you're gonna be like, I can do it. It's gonna get sucked up in the tornado and thrown out like 75 miles away, and some poor schlub's gonna have this thing hit their window and break it. Yes, you're responsible. You need to be careful. Don't do things like that, even if you see me doing crazy things, okay? You have to use your best judgment. We gotta make sure we protect our ability to be able to fly these amazing toys, and this is probably somewhere between the very upper echelon toy grade and hobby grade. I would say it's pretty much hobby grade, okay? FMS is a good company. They make good quality stuff. And yes, I could take out this receiver. I could take out the reflex and put in a $100 receiver in this and make it do some amazing things, okay? Now, I'm not saying this won't do amazing things straight out of the box, and it probably will, but I don't like that I don't have any flaps. I don't like that I don't have flapperons. This has a huge wing. You could put inboard flaps here. You could make this a longer aileron. You could take and cut this aileron in half and make a longer aileron outboard and a shorter aileron or a flap on the inboard portion. And we actually have channels to do that right now on the receiver that's provided. But you're not going to be able to do any delays on deployment of those flaps. You also have a channel that's being used for modes, which, by the way, if you didn't already know this, you can set the mode on the reflex. You can unplug it and it will recover to that mode every time you power this unit up, whatever you left it in. So if you wanted an auto leveling, it can stay in auto leveling all the time, and guess what? Then you can plug something else into this channel and you can make that do something else, which is super fun. So if you decided you wanted to make another servo that pulls a little lever and drops a parachute, and next thing you know, you've got that cool feature. Or you could, more importantly, set up a flap circuit where you've got one servo here and one servo here that share a channel through a Y cable, and you just make sure that you mechanically attach them in the right direction so that they both actuate down. You can make this little section of the wing fold down, and you can make an inboard flap, which makes this thing even more flyable than it already is. So there's so much things that you can do. There's so many things that you can do. I've been listening to our 6-year-old too much. There's so many things you can do that would be super fun. Oh, I wanted to point something out. I just noticed this. You see this? When I cram my rod in, it evidently liked this side better. I don't like that one bit, and we're gonna fix it right now. I'm sorry I didn't notice that before, guys. We're just gonna grab a flat screwdriver of kind of like a middle size. I'm just gonna grab this and slide it through. See, that's where it's supposed to be. So my apologies, guys. I didn't notice that that happened. So then I'm just gonna take that same flat screwdriver and just relax this foam. You see that? Now, if I really wanted to fill that in, I could fill that with lightweight spackle. And you would never, ever, 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 ever know, but I actually don't even care. It's not gonna hurt it. The wing root is very thick there, and I don't think there's any jeopardy of causing a real problem on this plane. Now, don't forget, with this ready to fly, you get the charger, and you get the transmitter, and you get the battery, but you don't get the glue, which you absolutely must use. okay?
Yes. Or the double A's for.
Or the double A's. So if you need double A's and if you need glue, get those. Get the double A's locally. It's gonna be cheaper, but get the glue when you're ordering this plane. And by the way, if you think even remotely that you're gonna get other planes, like we just built this F-15 here. You may not have seen the video yet because we're not sure the order of release on this. That one does use glue too. We use China glue all the time. It's very handy. Sometimes we're just putting like a fake antenna or a fake pitot tube, or maybe like reattaching a canopy here and there. We use it all the time. It's one of the cheaper things. You need to have it on the shelf. I stay away from CA as much as possible, partly because I don't have CA that's working great right now. I know that sounds terrible with the thousands of planes that I have, but the truth is I have trouble keeping CA fresh because I don't use it that much, because China glue works so much better. That being said, there are many occasions where CA is a lot easier, and you can use Kicker and it will set now. Done. That's why people like CA. But the thing is, especially when dealing with certain types of foam, this stuff is EPO, and it's probably a nicer EPO that's not going to be reactive to a standard medium CA from like BSI, from Bob Smith Industries. But they do say to use a foam safe CA, which is considerably more expensive. So instead of being like $7 or $8 for a half an ounce, it's probably gonna be $20 for half an ounce. And you're like, what? Yes, I agree. China glue. That's all I got to say. You'll solve that problem. And then you can get your small bottle of foam safe glue. You can get your small bottle of medium foam safe. You can get your small bottle of thin foam safe. So when you do have a plane where you just want to get some of that thin in there and just boom, set it with some Kicker, then you can do that. By the way, this glue, see that? Right there? That's kind of uggo. I'm gonna grab the...
Just gonna roll it off?
I'm gonna try to roll it off, yeah. I've got this from when I was gluing stuff earlier. Yeah, I missed it. I didn't see it until just now.
If that was a painted surface, you wouldn't be able to do that right now, probably.
No,
right?
it would pull paint, for sure. But, you know, the other thing you can do is you can use tape to get that off sometimes. And the other thing is, if you use Kicker, okay, if you want to totally clean this off and you like just can't resist cleaning this plane up, then you can use Kicker, which is Instaset. It's used to accelerate the curing of CA. And that will break down this glue to where it just rubs off like with a rag, okay? But it's also gonna break down what's in that seam, because that stuff wicks into seams. So just take it with a grain of salt. Also, it will break down paint, okay? So if you have a painted surface and you put it on there, use it sparingly, because it will eventually delaminate the paint and it will be gone. So anyway, guys, we hope we've answered a lot of questions you probably didn't even know you had. And if you're just new to the channel, welcome. Brian Phillips, RC here. Megan, the camera crew, my wife of many years. On the other side of the camera, she does a great job keeping this business running, this little small franchise business, whatever it is that we do here on Brian Phillips RC. But she also helps run our YouTube channel, website, which is Brian Phillips RC. It's really hard to remember because it's the exact name of this channel here. So we hope that if you guys are looking for maybe another plane, you're like, hey Brian, I like the Easy Trainer, thanks for doing that video, but I'd like something a little more sophisticated like that F-15 or like that you know, well, there's a bunch of them. There's a Maul over here. There's the J11 over here. There's an M4 helicopter over there, of course, competitive brand there. There's a P-51 down below, still made by FMS, but under a different brand for Horizon Hobby called E-Flight. We've got this giant T-28 back here. I mean, we've done so many planes, and what you're seeing back here is just like what we've done in the last few weeks. We have literally hundreds more downstairs, hundreds. And we love doing it. But the thing is, we're only gonna do it if you guys like it. And so we ask very, very much that you would like the videos that you watch, even if you only watch part of the video, because we do long format for a reason, and that is because many people need a lot of help. And if you've already received the help, say 2 years ago when you started flying, or 6 months ago when you ran into our channel, or a couple of years ago, like the videos, it does help us. We wanna reach as large an audience as we can and be able to convert as many people and win their hearts and minds for RC, aircraft, fixed wing in particular is what we mostly specialize on at Brian Phillips RC. And we want to get them flying because it's not an easy hobby. You know, it's like people are like, ooh, that's cool, but then they realize just how hard it really is and they give up. And that's what we want to help avoid. We want to help avoid one and dones, which you can become just by choosing that J11.
That's your first plane.
Go ahead and spend $1,000 on that plane and battery, and a little bit more for the transmitter and battery. Okay, closer to 2,000. And then you can crash it in a million pieces, just like I did. That was different. So anyway, that's what a one and done is. Because once you do that, you're gonna give up, because that's what most people do in that circumstance. Or you can buy something that's more like this, that's gonna give you a prime opportunity at success. We wanna help demonstrate what success looks like by giving you an opportunity to fly something that's easier to fly. And you're like, but Brian, that's so lame compared to the J11. I hear what you're saying, and let me tell you something. Even though I completely get what you're saying, you will not think it's lame when you're the one doing it, okay? You're gonna think it's amazing. Now, again, I don't mean to put words in anybody's mouth that thinks this is not lame, because I don't think it's lame. I love flying beginner planes just as much as I love flying J11s, just as much as I fly all these other ones. I just love flying. It's a skill you build over time. It's hard. It's something that you can't buy. It's very real. It sucks all your attention while you're doing it. You have to focus. You have to have discipline. There are mistakes made. There are consequences. It's a very real and yet super relaxing and amazing experience, especially when you get to be in a little bit better and you get something like this that's easy to fly. Then you can just relax and enjoy it, okay? It's not like the J11 where you're like butt clenching and stressed out and worried, oh boy, is it gonna make it? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I wanna do a high-speed pass at 200 miles an hour. Well, it's not quite that fast. Let's say it's 100 miles an hour, and you know, you make a mistake and all of a sudden up in smoke, $800 down the toilet, you know.
Yep.
This thing, it's not gonna be like that, okay? So, but if you wanna get to that experience, you gotta start here, or something like it. And there's a handful of different great choices, guys. I don't want you to think this is the only way. We don't do the whole best, fastest, cheapest, you know, ests. We don't do that on Brian Phillips RC. What we do is we try to showcase the product in a fair environment where we point out problems that we have. Like, this thing's been slick the whole time I've been working on it. It's really annoying to have a plane that slides out of your hands. Although now that I'm saying that, I'm grabbing onto the decals. It's been working pretty good. But when you're holding this thing, it wants to slide out of your hands the whole time. See, I can barely grip it. Down here, I've got a hold of the Easy Trainer decals, working really nice. So those are the types of things. I also want to point out the fact that there's no LEDs. These are the types of things that we point out. LEDs would be really handy on a plane like this. And you want to know how much it would cost FMS to actually put LEDs on here?
Probably that much.
I don't know, $7, $6 maybe. So you might complain that there's no LEDs, but that's what we see too. So we try to point those things out. You might also complain that there's no throttle cut, and this is a beginner plane. Wouldn't it be a good idea, camera crew, to have a safety feature on a beginner plane where you've got inexperienced people using them? Okay, really good. Also, why is there not a toggle switch for power? That is so weird.
Yeah.
So anyway, these are the types of things we point out, not to beat up FMS because we think they're such bad guys, but so that you guys as a consumer get to see the whole picture instead of highlight, and then just, oh, don't mind all these low lights. We don't want, you want to look at it inclusively and say, is this really a good value for X number of dollars? We also don't talk about price a lot here because really the prices change a lot. And if you follow our links, then we will make commissions when you buy the plane. There was a bug that just flew in front of me. So if you do follow the links, you help support Brian Phillips RC, our family of 6. Yes, we have 4 kids downstairs that are doing things. We can't figure out what they're doing right now.
No idea what they're doing.
So you will help to support us and in our efforts to bring you as many different new, amazing RC experiences as possible. We want to help you guys make the best of whatever you do pick. And if you pick something wrong, we want to help pick you back up and say, hey, it's okay. Pick better next time. Listen to the advice we give you, and you'll probably have a better shot at success. But we're not gonna be able to make you successful. You can't buy that. You can't rent that. You can't pay me to tell you how to be a better pilot. I mean, I can give you advice all day long till I'm blue in the face, but it's a skill you have to earn yourself. And I'm just one guy. There's a million other people that know what's going on a lot better than I do. So at the end of the day, they're not on a channel telling you to buy this thing or buy that, or how to set up the radio, or how to set up the ESC, or what the heck an ESC is, or what is binding. That's what we do right here. And so for that reason, we ask for your support in one of a million different ways. Any of them you choose, or more than one if you want. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, buy the planes if you like them and you can afford them and it's right for you. Not if I reviewed it, if it's right for you. And if you don't like this plane, hey, no hard feelings. You don't have to buy the Easy Trainer 1280 millimeter. Maybe you are more in the 800 millimeter size, which by the way, we will eventually do that video too. We just haven't done that one yet. So guys, hopefully that answers your questions. We also have PayPal, Patreon, and newly added members. So you can do memberships on YouTube. So in order of fee structure that takes away your gifts from us, it would go like this. The best case scenario would be like PayPal, friends and family. There's no fees. PayPal donations, which does cost us fees. Then, and by the way, just like, not that we're asking for more than less, but the less you do, the higher the fee structure is, just generally speaking. Same is true on Patreon, which is now monthly instead of PayPal, which is like a one-time thing. And then members is a monthly support schedule as well, with the highest fees of the lot of those choices.
And then super thanks would be like a
Super thanks would be like a
one-time
one-time
on YouTube.
And I don't even know what the
like,
fee structure is. I think it's even worse. That's like probably the worst.
Probably the worst.
But at the same time, here's the thing, guys. We operate this channel at the good graces of Google. Thank you, Google. Truthfully, we don't get into a lot of the things that we would love to say here because they're in charge and they get to set the rules, which is a bunch of BS, but it's the way that it is. So if you guys see something in the background, you're like, haha, he can't talk about that on YouTube. Yep, you're right. I agree. It's BS, but that's the world we live in. So we're going to just try to focus on what we love and find the common denominators that we can. And we're going to love doing it together. And it's called RC, Fixed Wing Aircraft. And you're going to love it because we're going to help you guys love it if you're not loving it yet. Or if you're just coming back to the hobby and you're like, Brian, I got my 72 megahertz crystals ready. I got all the pins cleaned. I got my, I took apart the potentiometers on my transmitters for my read controls. Futaba 3-channel. I'm ready. Okay, what do I do now? Okay, first of all, you just take that, put it back in the box and back on the shelf, and or maybe sell it to a vintage shop somewhere because that's pretty cool stuff.
It's probably worth money.
But what I'm going to say is this. Listen, things have changed a lot for the better, and they've changed a lot for the worse. Worse in that it's very complicated when you're first starting. Better that you're getting a lot more technology for a lot less money, and you're going to be able to enjoy it more than you probably realize. But that's come at the expense of made in China. But that ain't gonna last long if China's labor rates keep going up. I'm just saying, people, if you don't like it, you know, we'll be to Malaysia next or wherever it is. I don't know, some other Asian country. So at the end of the day, we are realists here that work in the real world in real time and space, and we want you guys to know what's really going on. We'll try our very best to get you back up to speed if you are brand new to the hobby. No, you don't need to get a trainer if you used to fly for 30 years, 10 years ago. But you might want to get a trainer just for fun. And if you're an experienced pilot and you just want something to throw around every day, put it in the back of the pickup truck behind your seats, take it out to the job site and fly around, this might be a good, fun thing to do. But I'm going to tend to lean toward, I want to put it with my NX10 or something similar. I want to put in my own transmitter radio setup so that I can control this thing to its full potential. And for that reason, you might be leaning toward the plug and fly style.
Which is available.
Which is available too.
Yep.
So we'll have links to that. Just follow the links. And also if you want to know pricing or if you need a copy of a manual or we like skip something and you want to try to answer that in the manual, you can click on our links. They'll take you to the page where this is available. Just pick the right size and then scroll down. They'll have more documents and stuff there.
And also if you're in Canada, make sure you click the one that specifically says ship to Canada right underneath the name of the plane. It's a separate
And there's different stock, guys. I hate to break it to you. You're not going to get access to as much because Canadians Love their taxes. Even
but they're adding. FMS is trying to add
FMS is doing a great job. They're doing better than most.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you got to remember, we don't vote for the politicians up there. Remember, we had a war with those people. We kicked them out.
That was a while ago.
America. That was July 4th. Wait, was that actually? Yeah, we celebrate it on the 4th of July. So anyway, anybody else?
No more history lessons. We're going to say something.
No more history lessons or Google
like
might block us. But all I'm going to say is these planes are awesome. And if you're in Canada and you want one, we're really sorry. We'll do the best we can to convince them to get what you guys love. So if you leave it in the comments, if you really love this type of thing and they don't have it, let us know. We do actually have access to these humans, like real humans that like have mouths and brains and hands and feet and things like
this.
There
is an easy trainer available in Canada.
There is?
I can't remember if it's both sizes or only one, but there is at least one.
Okay.
That's available.
Well, what I'm saying is if you want a J11 and they don't have it, let us know. We can try to reach out to them. The other thing is there are sometimes some back channels you can use to get those things shipped. It's just a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Because you're going through logistical challenges to get them overseas. And when the Chinese companies work out those logistical challenges, they usually do a pretty good job with efficiency. So that being said, it usually entails having a warehouse that brings in freight in container loads, okay? Any more questions you have, leave them in the comments below. We'll do our best to get to them at our convenience. We are not getting to them as quick as we used to, and we apologize for that. If you are a Patreon supporter, we do see your comments quicker. If you're a member, we're gonna have a comments like prioritization thing. I don't even know how that works yet. So we don't wanna make huge promises we can't keep, but at the same time, we are gonna tend to do that. And not because we want this pay to play site, it's just because we literally just need a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
And a tiebreaker is what we need because we can't keep up anyway. So, hate to break it to you, that's the reality we live in right now. There's just 2 of us plus 4 of us. That's 6, by the way. And we're all, and then my day job employer is vying for my attention too for like 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
So if I could just.
If there were like 4 of you.
If there was just like another 300,000 or 400,000 of you that would watch our videos and subscribe, it would help with that problem a little bit. But the truth is, we have been so blessed on this channel to have such a great audience that really cares about us. And we see it every time we go out to these events. We went to Jonal this year, and we went to RC Fest with Horizon. That was super cool. Mm-hmm. And we're thinking of maybe going to a 3rd one this year later. We don't want to make an announcement until we have the details worked out. But it's looking sort of like we're going to be able to make it work. And whenever we meet you guys, it's super fun because we get to go out and see you. Of course, you know who we are, but we don't know who the heck you are. Other than, you know, like comments and snide remarks that we see occasionally from the same people. We kind of get to know your personalities a little bit, but it's always cool to meet you in person and have real brief conversations. That my camera crew is rolling her eyes. She's looking into the distance. She's like, when did that happen?
Brief. I've never seen you have a brief conversation, ever.
Less than a day.
Well.
It's brief.
Okay.
So guys, the Easy Trainer from FMS, we hope you enjoyed the video. Obviously, we do the Unbox build video setup separate from the maiden flight. So if you're watching this, you're like, good Lord, I didn't even get to see the thing fly. Don't worry, it's already published.
Different
we wouldn't
video.
have this up. Different video.
Yeah.
So also, that being said, if you're trying to find a video and you just can't figure it out, you can click on my face on YouTube anywhere. It'll take you to our channel. It'll probably start playing some obnoxious video about some Airbus airliner. Don't feel bad. It just happens to be the golden goose that we don't want to kill. So anyway, you can follow there and you can go to the playlist, and that's the best way to find stuff on YouTube. But if you have access to the World Wide Web, which I would assume you do if you're on YouTube, then you can go over to brianphillipsrc.com, which is our domain, and we will show you what you need to see. And we have some new tabs the camera crew's been working on, which is super exciting.
You haven't even seen them yet.
The new tabs are going to help you to determine between manufacturer and between style. Mm-hmm. So it looks like a purchase site, but it's really not. All it is just to help you get to the videos. Once you get to the videos, you can decide if you like the plane. You can make a decision to purchase. And when you do through our links, you keep us in business. Make no mistake, all those other things we offered are just for people that have money burning a hole in their pockets, but they don't want to buy a plane. We'd rather you buy a plane, an e-bike, an e-scooter, you know, a leaf blower. We always throw the leaf blower out there. You know, an air check. What was that? Like an air filler.
Hey, that thing was good too.
The shameless kitten.
We got less a hard time about that. People just really didn't like the leaf blower. That's well,
the chainsaw is one of my favorites because you get a lot of the safety prudes out there.
Yeah, the weed whacker, like our actual weed whacker. People were not impressed with your usage of our weed whacker.
What are you talking about? I'm still getting comments about the still weed whacker, which is hilarious. We didn't have an affiliate link for that thing, which ticks me off. But anyway, still, if you're watching, still, we would love to work with you. Still, so many dad jokes. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Seriously, more coming from Brian Phillips RC.